Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. It's great to have you here. Carlien, thank you for joining us today. Um, Great to have you with us. I will do the introductions, and I'm the founder of European Customer Consultancy. And Carlene and I met at a wonderful, wonderful business retreat in Belgium, which was all about discovering your purpose. And Carlene has helped me a lot to discover my purpose as a business leader, which is about creating harmony in business. I was so impressed with Carlene's methods and approaches and life story that I really wanted to share her and her expertise with all of our listeners and followers. Carleen, over to you. Please do a little introduction.
Yes, thank you so much, Olga, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to have this chat about a topic I think which is very relevant these days. So a little bit about me. My name is Carlien Cavens, and I'm the founder of Unplug 48. And with Unplug 48, we host mostly leadership development retreats where actually CEOs and top entrepreneurs they retreat for a few days, completely disconnected from the outside world, in nature usually. And the sole purpose of these retreats is to get closer to who they are as a person, who they are as a leader, and what is their purpose. Because that is something which is absolutely important to start with any business. And I haven't always been doing that. So these days I'm an executive coach, but I have a history in oil and gas, and then later on strategy consulting. So my last job was consultant at McKinsey and Company, and it's actually there that I started to get the inspiration to move from the pure strategic uh, company issues to more okay, but there's a lot of problems to be solved in the world, but if we don't have the right leaders to lead companies to solve these problems, we have an issue. And in my perception or in my observation, we are still hugely lacking the right leaders, the right leadership style to do these things. And that's why I started Unplug 48. So doing that for 7 years now. And it has been a very fulfilling and interesting ride.
I can't believe that, and I can't wait to hear all of your practical tips, or as much as we can deliver within the short space of time that we
Mhm.
have. What I'd like to do first is to introduce the audience to the harmony concept, just so that we have this framework, and then we will really drill down on leadership. Um, so I'm going to share my screen just for ease. And these are the 5 pillars that we talk about when we talk about harmonious organizations. And previously, we focused a lot on experience management, and we believed that if you start managing customer experience, it would just penetrate the organization and people will get excited and effective in it. The truth is that organizations have many priorities indeed, and customer experience is often declared as a priority, but it does require a transformation program. And this transformation change management program needs to touch on many aspects. For example, processes. If your processes are constructed in a siloed way, it's very difficult to achieve collaboration for customer value delivery. We often find that this is a big barrier, and we start with looking at the customer journey and then looking at the processes that support the journey. Technology, right? We all have issues with legacy systems and technology that's not really aligned to delivering customer value. So, how do we unpack that and understand what's necessary, what's important, and what's not going to be appreciated by customers and the employees. A lot of talk these days is about AI. We never want this to become a buzzword. We want it to serve fulfilling customer needs. Of course, people and culture believe in it. And I am going to make a big link to leadership here. Are leaders convincing enough for people to believe that customer centricity is indeed the main priority for our organization? Also, are they encouraged and rewarded in the right ways? If we expect them to collaborate, are we calling out the right behaviors and uh, making those people into, these days heroes in one way or another? And of course, at the heart of every organization, there is leadership. I'm not going to go too much more into the details about the harmonious organization. Hopefully, it gives you enough context and perspective. I'm very interested to dive deeper into leadership, but those of our listeners who want to know more, please feel free to sign up to our newsletter. And we often talk about case studies and principles of harmony. So, leadership. Carlien is an expert in making leaders understand what is it that they are about. What does it take, Carlene, to be a leader at the center of a harmonious organization?
Yeah. First of all, I love the word harmonious organization, especially in this era where everything is about growth and becoming bigger and better. I think it's a very fresh perspective to look at how can we make companies more harmonious. Um, and I think indeed harmonious. It's about, as you said, making sure that you add value as a company, but not only on one level, but on every level. So it means people who invest in your company. Of course, that is usually the dominant value, but I think that is ready to be reviewed again. But there's also clients, there is people who work in the company, there is suppliers, there is the environment in which you operate. And so as long as you are creating value on all levels, I think you're doing well. As soon as you're destroying value for one of those parties, there is a problem, and I think then it should be questioned. And of course that starts from yeah, what we call the why. Why are you doing what you do? And I think linking that to leadership, um, it's very, for me, I'm always going to speak from my personal experience and perspective on things. For me, being a leader in a harmonious organization, it always starts with yourself and being harmonious yourself. And so somehow that means that what you are doing, why you are doing the things, it's all aligned. So you know why you are working for a specific company, you know why you have founded your company, and you know what the problem is you try to solve, and it's something which is close to your heart. That's for me, in a very simple way, explained what I think is important for a leader in a harmonious business. And then we get quickly to purpose. You know why you do the things, and that's where it gets very interesting, because if you ask 10 people, first of all, there's a lot of people who don't really have a clear answer to that, which is okay. But I think if the higher you get in the organization, the more it is important you are very clear on that. And there's also, in every person, there's also different forces driving you to do things. And it's also something that we discussed during our retreat together, Olga. And that's where it gets very important, because for me, there's different reasons why you wake up in the morning, you do your job, you do business, and all of those reasons, for me, they can be categorized into two groups. And depending which of those two groups you act upon, I think it will lead to harmony, or it will lead to somehow value destruction. Let's call it like
It's intriguing. What are the groups?
that. Yeah. Very simply said, there is love and there is fear. And this might sound very still a bit esoteric, but let me try to explain. So let's start with the first group, fear. When you do things out of fear, you do things because you start from some feeling of shortage, scarcity. For instance, you feel you are not recognized enough, or you feel you don't have enough security, financial security, physical security. And so there's a lot of reasons where people feel scarcity. And
So as a
usually,
leader, you wake up thinking, "Oh my God, we're not going to hit this quarter's numbers."
yes, that's absolutely a very good example of scarcity thinking, because you are afraid. You are afraid, you think you don't have enough revenue in this case, and that will lead you to do the things. And I must say, scarcity thinking, or driving actions driven by fear, they can be very strong. You can build whole companies on those driving forces. But there is a problem with that, because if you feel inherently afraid for not having enough, not hitting the quarterly numbers, not having enough recognition for what you do, I will tell you, it will never be solved by getting more of that. So maybe the next quarter, you work very hard, you will have a good quarter, but then you get a new quarter, and again you start from this fear, or maybe I will not get hit my targets for this quarter. And so for me, it's really like, coming from the energy sector, I like to compare with energy sources. Every action driven by fear, it is almost like a fossil fuel. You need to always get more of it. You need to grow your revenue every year again, and never you will feel satisfied, never you will feel like, now we are making enough money, because you will never feel that. And that creates continuous anxiety and stress, and it actually works very counterproductive, because maybe, yes, you will grow your revenue, and you will, but it's driven from fear, and very often it's very exhausting, this way of acting. And it's not only exhausting for you as a leader, but probably it's going to be exhausting for the entire company, because people being beaten up to sell more, to do better, to it's not good enough. It's not a very pleasant environment to work in. And
And before we move on to
yeah.
love-driven
Mhm.
businesses, what sort of impact does this fear-driven behavior have on the pillars of harmony? So, if you think about processes, technology, people and culture, and experience management, uh, how does this leadership mindset translate
Mhm.
consciously or subconsciously into destroying the harmony?
Yeah, I think on many levels. For instance, let's start as already explained with the people who work for you. Usually fear is very much focused on the short term, because you feel it's not nice and you want to take quick actions to get rid of the fear. And so it's a short term thing, which means that you are more likely to push people, to squeeze people, to put pressure on people. And maybe in the short term that will work very well because people will sell more, maybe they make better products. But the problem is it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So maybe in the short term you will feel like you're getting where you want to be, but as many people will know, being squeezed or pushed for too long, too hard, it leads to burnout. It leads to people, employees leaving your company. So you will have issues with retention. So that is an issue. Then let's look at clients. If I'm afraid that I will not have enough revenue, what will I do? I will again try to push clients to buy more, and maybe buy things that they don't need, that maybe buy too much. And then we end up in this whole consumption climate where actually companies are just happy that you buy their products, but they don't care anymore if the products help you solve a certain problem, or if the products make you happy. As long as you buy, that's good enough. And I think that's an issue, because then, for instance, it leaves me with buying things that were pushed to me through social media advertisement, and then I have it, and then actually I realize I totally didn't need this product, so I'm not using it. Or situations where, as a client, because this is still voluntary, but if as a client you feel you're really pushed through all kinds of psychological marketing tricks to be buying more, I don't think that's a very sustainable way of doing business. In the end, you want your customers to come to you and to buy because they really want to, and not because they are pushed.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, there's a lot of levels. Suppliers, if we want to make more money, what do? We squeeze the suppliers, especially when we are big companies. We tend to use our purchasing power to bargain every year again better deals for ourselves, which leaves our suppliers in a more and more tricky situation with margins shrinking. And again, that's not sustainable. So there's a lot of things, processes. If we want to make money fast, because that's where the fear is, we might bypass some of the processes which are there for good reasons, just to make sure that we hit the targets. We start reporting absolute crappy numbers. It's all things that happen these days, and sometimes they get into the news, but very often they don't. And so in the end, you can ask yourself, what are we doing here? Is it still about creating value, or is it just to fulfill a personal, which is then translated into a more strategic fear of the company? And so it starts from a personal fear, the fear of not hitting the numbers, the fear of not. But in the end, you can always wonder what's the purpose of hitting certain targets if you feel that for some good reason that's not where you're gonna end. And then, of course, it's usually shareholder value that is pushing those targets. But if everyone gets unhappy about all of this except for the shareholders, what are we doing in the end?
Yeah, and I guess that there's a question from Elena in the audience who's saying, doesn't this fear happen because of external pressures and expectations? And I think you've just touched on it to say it often does. And I suppose managing this, managing who you choose to be associated with, who
Yeah.
are your shareholders, also takes a lot of purposeful leadership and focus. You don't just jump to any offer out of
Mhm.
fear that you're not going to get another one. You choose according to what's right for all parties in the organization. I
Yeah.
love this concept. I love it that she said strategic fear. Right? Personal fear leads to strategic fear,
Yeah.
leads to more anxiety in the society as
Yeah.
well.
And short-term solutions. And in the end, it's true. I've got many people who come to me and say, I mean, this is all very nice concepts, but in the end, every quarter I have my shareholders breathing in my neck because they have expectations, because they have put money and they expect a certain return.
Mm,
And I think, as you said, Olga, if the shareholder doesn't care about how you do things, but only cares about their own return on investment and is not interested in the end in if you create value for the customer, for the people who work, I think it's the wrong shareholder.
yeah.
And I think as a leader, coming back to the leader, a leader has to be very, very centered in what he or she tries to accomplish with the company. And it should always start from what is the problem we try to solve and how can we collectively do that in a way that we all win from it. And so customer is key, employees are key, because of course if the customer is happy and employees are squeezed, that's not harmonious neither. um, if every month again we have to beg for more money from the shareholders, that's not harmonious neither. So at some point we also do have to make profits. But indeed, I do admit that the system how it is now is very difficult to navigate from a point of view of doing things out of love for your purpose, for the product, rather than out of fear. And that's why it requires very, I'd like to use the word courageous leaders.
Hmm.
Leaders who dare to go against the status quo, against the traditional model of only shareholder value, because I think that's where you can make the difference. Um,
Let's try and paint a picture of uh, love and courage driven
yeah,
businesses and harmonious, and perhaps you can share some strategies for how can they navigate this complexity of internal and external environment.
yeah. So we talked about love. Sorry, we talked about fear-driven actions, fear-driven strategies. On the other hand, and they start from scarcity. Then on the other side of the river, there is something, call it love, call it courage, whatever, call it purpose. What is important that it starts from not scarcity, but abundance. So it starts from abundance, and abundance in the light of a company, it can be viewed as collectively, what are you really good at? What is the, if you take all the individuals in your company together, together with the IP, what are you really good at? And how can you use this quality or these qualities as a service to the bigger good, to customers, to people inside your company, to suppliers. So it's about finding what you have too much because it's your quality. And whenever you have, if you look at it from a personal level, if you are, for instance, you have the quality of problem solving, it's very difficult, if that's your natural quality, not to do it, because solving problems will make you happy. It will give you energy, and opposed to the fear-driven actions, when you start from your qualities, from the things you have too much, you have abundant, it gives you energy, and it is like a renewable energy source. And working on those things, making those customers happy, making sure that people work in your company, they are happy working there, they are proud working there, that is kind of a positively reinforcing flying wheel. And people will be more attracted to work at your company. Customers, they feel the genuine love that you put in your products and services, so they are attracted to you rather than you have to chase them. And so it's a completely different way of looking at doing business. So starting from qualities you have too much and wanting to share those for the bigger goods. I think that's what I would say are love-driven actions or love-driven strategies.
Yeah. And I loved it how you say it's something that you can't help. You have to do it, no
Yeah,
matter what. It's just coming out of you. You can't stop it, and that's I think that's a very good marker to sit down and think. Personally, what is it that really drives me? What's in my core, and what can I share with the world, and then
mhm,
extend that to the company. That's a really good tip.
absolutely. And to, of course, then the question is, what is it that you are good at? Because that's also not so easy to discover if you're not working on it. So let's start from a personal level, and maybe I would like to get a bit deeper into the role of the leader in this.
Hmm.
Because for me, leadership has the ripple effect. If the leader is clear about his or her purpose, it can ripple down through the entire company, which is good for everyone. If the leader is fearful and anxious, the same story counts, and that's super, yeah, nefast for the company. So as a leader, there was a super interesting study done by, I think I read it in Harvard Business Review, but I forgot where the study was done. But there was a study done where actually they started comparing thousands of studies that try to understand what makes a good leader. What are the qualities? What do they do? And the funny thing is that there was nothing that came out as, okay, this defines a good leader. So it was very, yeah, dispersed, the answers. But there was one thing that did came out, which I think is interesting in this concept, is that they said good leaders, they are uh, they are very diverse. So some are extroverts, some are introverts, some are very I don't know, direct, some are very indirect, more cooperative. But what was a common factor in all those leaders which were marked as being very exceptional is that they were very much aligned with their purpose, with what they were doing actually in the company. And let me give you an example. There was at some point, was it? I think it was the founder of Novartis, the big pharma company, and he had been, yeah, ill from a very young age. So had been in hospitals for many times. He lost his sister, I think, to cancer. And so his whole childhood and youth he spent in hospitals, and he had a terrible customer experience.
Hmm.
And that made him decide, I want to do this differently. And so first he became a doctor. And then he said, okay, as a doctor, I cannot have a big impact because it's only a limited amount of people. And then he said, okay, I'm going to start a pharma company. I'm going to develop products which help people staying out of hospitals, getting a better experience. And so that is a very beautiful example of how a very personal story helps you to discover what you're really passionate about and transforms the hardship into being of service to the world. And I think that's for instance a very good tip that I can give for people if they are not clear about the purpose or about what drives them. One of the things is think about something that you found difficult in your life, something that you are frustrated about, um, something where you have a personal link with the topic. I think that's key. And that you combine with your personal quality. And your personal quality, there you have to think about, I think, two tips. One, what is it that people come to you for? Um, other people generally they understand very well what are your qualities. It's difficult to understand it yourself, but you will see that people are attracted to you for certain things. So ask yourself the questions: what is it that people come to you for? Is it because they want problem solving? Is it because they want creativity? Is it because they want to feel better? They want to feel comforted? Whatever it is, try to pay attention to what is it that people come to you for. And then a second thing is do some introspection and think about what are the things that I do when I engage in them. I lose track of time and space because I simply enjoy it. It makes me happy, it gives me energy. And those things which also have a service component, because of course you can say I enjoy I don't know, cooking, which is nice, but yeah, if there's a service, if you want to become a cook, that could be an option. But the things that you enjoy doing that are effortless to you, and where somehow you feel you can bring a lot of value with very little effort. These qualities together with hopefully a personal story, then you are right at the sweet spot of purpose.
It feels like it does require a lot of thinking and focus. And as you were referring to Novartis example, I thought
Mhm.
of Tony's chocolates, and um,
Mm.
there is. It feels to me that there is an emergence of purpose-driven businesses.
Mhm.
They are probably far and few in between, to be fair,
Mhm.
but as soon as they appear, people appreciate them a
Yeah.
lot. And Tony's Chocolate was founded on the belief that there needs to be more fairness in the chocolate
Mm.
industry, and farmers and everyone who participates, suppliers, should all get a fair share of profits and appreciation. And their business is fully ethical. And even though the chocolate is probably a bit more expensive, they've become successful quite fast. So that is another example of what you were just saying, that people people appreciate it, right? They see it, they feel it, they come to you for the things that you're good at. And that applies to both an individual and to businesses created by those
Yeah.
individuals.
Absolutely.
And for us, of course, we always try and encourage leaders to think about the customer purpose and value that their businesses create to customers. Although I
Mhm.
do fully agree that value has to be created across the chain. And again, I want to share my screen and just leave it there as the principles of customer centric leaders who want to operate in harmony. And I think the big question is always, how can leaders communicate their vision to the rest of the organization? Um, and I'll explain. So, a particular problem that we experience is that leaders generally say, of course, customer centricity is a good thing, it's the right thing. Nobody would ever say, no, 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 we're not there for our customers. It's
Mm.
not important. However, they also feel that declaring intent leads to action,
Mm.
which it doesn't always. There needs to be certain reinforcement and um, security within the employees to say, okay, this is real, this is the true direction. Do you have any suggestions for how they can transmit their purpose and their core?
Mm. Yeah. I think for a leader to transmit any message, the first thing is that you have to believe it yourself. So yeah, let's take the example of customer centricity. Are you doing, you should be very honest with yourself and ask yourself the question, are you doing customer centricity because, I don't know, it's trendy, you think you're gonna make more money, because that's what shareholders have told you? Or are you doing it because you genuinely care about your customers and you genuinely care about solving first the problem of the customer before anything else? And so that's again, it gets again a bit into this love fear. Do you do it because you think you have to do it, or do you do it because you want to do it? And if the answer is I do it because, yeah, that's what people tell me to do, but actually I don't really care, then stop talking about it, don't do it, and live with the consequences of not being a customer centric organization. But if you decide to do it, if it's a priority, yeah, then you can only make it a priority if you breathe it, if you feel it, if you are walking the talk. And for instance, there's you will have a lot of nice examples too, I'm sure, Olga. But I know a few very customer centric CEOs who sometimes they go out and for instance, a nice example is here in Belgium. It's food back, and it's kind of they bring ingredients, very fresh biological ingredients and recipes to families' homes, so that you don't have to go to the supermarket anymore, and you don't have to be creative about what to cook. Super nice company. And for him to know what people really thought about their products, every year, a few days a year, he gets into the van that delivers the boxes at people's houses, and he does the deliveries. He's one of the many delivery guys doing the deliveries, and then while he gives the product, he has a little chat with the clients. And for me, that is one nice example about walking the talk. If customer centricity is important to you, for instance, then you would have to spend personally time with some customers every year. Otherwise, how do you want to have to feel what lives with the customers? Same with another example, and that's not on customer centricity, but it's about employee engagement. If for you it's important that the people in your company are feeling well, how do you want to know if you never have personal conversations with them? If you only rely on the yearly um, employee satisfaction survey, good luck. And so the example of that person, it was the CEO of Etex, which now he left, but CEO of Etex, which is a pretty big construction materials company. And he had every day at least 3 short calls with random employees over throughout the world. Every day again, 3 employees. And then with his entire executive team, which I think was over 10 people, he spent 1 full day with each of them per year. So yeah, if employee or team engagement for you is important, you cannot expect to know what lives with the people if you never talk to them. So walking the talk is very important. Feeling that what you are doing is 100% aligned with how you feel about something. If it's not, you are basically bullshitting. And then a very important thing I think is also important, and not every leader is as good in it, but I think they can be trained in it. It's the art of storytelling. Because very often we leaders, we try to tell stories, or we try to convince people with numbers, with charts. But as a matter of fact, humans, they have, for ages, they have learned, they have transmitted knowledge, they have gathered people around stories. And a very good example that pops in my mind, because I was lucky to see him 2 weeks ago, is Barack Obama. So Barack Obama is one of those very nice examples where you see the way he moves the nation is not through statistics, numbers, it is through stories, through coherent stories about a future that he sees, which is not yet there, and by repeating the stories over and over again. So repetition is also key, because we people need to hear things a few times before we get to feel it. So be true to yourself in whatever you say. Don't say things that you don't believe. Walk the talk. Master the art of storytelling. There is very good courses and coaches on this level. So I think that's very important too. Learn to tell, to gather people, to convince people into a new direction through stories. I think those are all very important skills for people to move to a new future, because it's very difficult. As Barack Obama said it in the talk he gave, he said, if you want to take people to a future which does not exist yet, you have to be a damn good storyteller, because you have to take people into a projection of something you already see, but they don't see yet. And the better you are at taking people along in this imaginary future, the customer-centric future, the harmonious business future, the better you are at doing that and repeating it over and over again, the more likely you will get people to follow you in this story. So I think storytelling is also a super important skill in this matter.
That's very wise indeed. There's something about enablement there as well. And as you were giving the examples, I thought about one of the organizations that I've worked at. And one of the declared objectives was collaboration and uniting the silos and leveraging each other's skills. However, there was a slight paranoia in the business, I guess, and all of the departments had access levels. So you had to have a special card to get to a particular department, and that kind of that doesn't feel me as an employee enabled to collaborate or to go to the leadership team and ask questions or ask for input. So the way you organize work is also telling the story. It's telling you, okay, we've just told you about this bright future. but you can't really go there. You have a key. You have to be
Mm.
special. Um,
Mm.
so I think it's a whole system again, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think your example also made me think about a concept, which is trust. If you believe that collaboration is the way to go, if you believe that customers, you have to radically dare to change some of your processes in order to indeed enable it. Because a leader, one of, for me, the key responsibility of a leader is not to take decisions, but it's to enable. It's to
Mm,
enable, to make sure that any friction which is in the way between where we are today and the better future we see, any friction on the way, I enable to take away this friction. And so it needs a lot of trust that some of the new processes, which could be radically different, will give you what you want. For instance, an example where I thought about was, I don't know about where you live, but in Belgium, in the supermarkets, we used to have cashiers scanning the products that you bought, and then you pay, and then you go through. Now, more and more, these are disappearing, and it's all self-scan. So the supermarket basically relies a lot on the honesty of course there are some checks in place, or random checks, but it trusts that most people are good, and they will scan their products, and they will scan all of their products, and they will pay before they get out. And I didn't that's a nice example how um, yeah, choosing for a new way to go often involves radical change of your processes, and also the trust that goes with this change. Because of course people will steal in the supermarkets, but overall, um, yeah, you will win a lot by doing this, for instance.
yeah. And that kind of takes us to the matrix as well, because there is no proof before you launch self-service checkout. There is no proof to say that people won't steal when they have to go
Yeah.
through the cashier. Whether that's going to cause more or less damage is an unknown, and people perhaps act on the beliefs more than they act on facts, and that's why we have tests and trials and all of that. But you're right, it takes a big leap of faith to say,
Mhm.
we're here for customers, we trust our customers are good people,
Mhm.
and we are going to create an environment where they feel trusted. And
Mhm.
even though there will be controls in place, they don't have
Mhm.
to be in your face and obvious. And the business should monitor how this is actually working. Are they trusting the right people?
Yeah, yeah. And indeed, trust is key, because of course, the example you gave, okay, we have to collaborate, but everyone needs passes. It's a very beautiful example of how you have a good idea, but then fear kicks in, and fear wants to control. Fear is
Hmm.
always about controlling, whereas love is always about letting loose, letting go, enabling, and making it easier. And that, of course, it requires a huge shift in mindset in doing business, because to be honest, most businesses are completely built on controls and structures, and even making budgets for the next year is, it's in a way a lack of trust. In a way a lack of trusting, trying to control the future by already trying to guess what the future will bring. And COVID was a brilliant example of how you can never really know what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah. And I know organizations who've said, "Do you know what? It's such a pointless exercise to spend 3 months on budgeting to find out that everything is incorrect on the 4th of January. Um, so let's just not waste our time." And it does eat up a lot of resources, but
Yeah.
people rarely question it. And I was very surprised by that particular leader who shared this story, to have had the courage to say it's useless, let's not do it.
Mm.
And in our next LinkedIn Live, we are inviting Nick van Langendok, Nick
Ooh.
the Unbosser, and
Yeah.
he will surely enlighten us more on the principles of true leadership versus the principles of controlling management, and
Mm.
how to build this unbossed organization. I was
Yeah.
very surprised that he's actually managed to do this successfully with many companies, but amongst all, the most surprising one was the Chinese steel manufacturer,
Whoa.
which in most people's beliefs, that would be the least likely organization to
Yeah.
empower, enable, and unboss. So
Yeah.
we're all looking forward to this one. Um, I'd like to use the remaining few minutes to address some of the questions from the
Yeah.
audience. And there's an interesting one asking, so if you're not in an official leadership level, if you're not a senior level CEO, for instance, or C-suite executive, you don't usually have the level of um, influence or control or power in the organization. Um, can you apply the things that we talked about in middle management roles, in roles that
Mhm.
don't assume leadership responsibilities?
Mhm. Yeah. I think you can, up to a certain level. Yeah, that's a comment I get a lot. Like, yeah, but I want to do these things. I want to create products and services out of love and not out of fear. I don't want to push, but leadership doesn't accept, and they're not with
Yeah.
me. So I think what is, and it also requires some courage. I think what is important in any job you do, that you do it in a way which feels authentic and honest with yourself. So if for you cold calling customers 24/7 doesn't feel authentic or doesn't feel like the way to go, then don't do it. If the company pushes you to do it, then my suggestion is it's not the right company for you, because you have a different vision on how to treat customers. And that's not always easy. Like for instance, let me give you an example. So I used to work at McKinsey, where the company culture is such that um, the clients or a customer is king, but to a very extreme level. And so customer is king. They get everything. They get all our time, all our energy, but to the detriment of the energy of the consultants. And so you see that it's a culture where it's very normal to work 16 hours a day, or even more, to work in the weekends. And I was very it was not me, because for me, if at some point in the evening I'm tired, I think the best spend of my time is to go to bed and sleep, and wake up early in the next morning, and try to do something more efficiently. But that, of course, is not how things, not always how it is appreciated. And so there you feel the tension sometimes between how you would do things in an authentic way and what the company expects from you. And I think on some levels, it's not really important. Like, for instance, if I prefer to come casual to work, and they require me to be more uptight, and dress code for me is not really important, I'm happy to to adapt myself. But if we are talking about core values, like for me in the McKinsey case, resting is important, because otherwise I cannot deliver anything. If that is not aligned with how your leadership expects things from you, I think you have to ask yourself questions whether that is the right company for you. So long story short is even in big companies, and I know there's a lot of pressure to kind of all be the same and accommodate to the culture, but try to do things in a way which feels most natural to you. And if that is not possible on things which are close to your values, then take the right conclusions.
And yes, we can go back and think about the fear and all of those things, right? What if I don't find a job? But I think
Mm.
ultimately, if you're sure of your purpose, you're sure of your values, then in any
Mm.
role, whether leadership or not, you will be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Trust is key. Trusting that if this is not the right company for you, there is another one which is much better for you. So
Yes. So yeah, on this love-driven note, confidence, abundance, and love are the
mm,
foundations for harmonious individuals that create
absolutely.
harmonious businesses and harmonious societies. I'd like to thank you and all of the participants today for being with us. You can always get in touch with me and with Carlien on LinkedIn if you have any further questions left. We will be very happy to see you at our LinkedIn live events or reading our newsletter and just having conversations. Do you agree with the principles of harmonious organizations? And what did you get out of this discussion today? Share your success stories. It'd be great.
Thank you
Thank
very
you, Carlin.
Thank you very much, Olga. It was a very inspiring conversation, and happy I could contribute.
Indeed, and I've learned a lot as well. Thank you.
Thank you.